So, when did CrossFit come into the realm?
So I moved from Massachusetts to Rochester, New York for to work for Xerox. So they offered to pay for me to move out there. And I didn't know anyone. And if you know where Rochester is, that is also the middle of nowhere.
Nowhere,
It is up
nowhere.
near Canada, you know. And so across the street from the apartment that I was renting, there was a CrossFit gym, and I found a Groupon, and I found a whole new family and friend group there, and it just exploded from that point on.
Mhm. Were you pretty intimidated? Well, obviously being a Groupon, it's like, okay, like some people you do the Groupon and don't even go, but like,
Yeah, right.
you went. So what was your first experience going to that gym? And like, obviously like being CrossFit, like you don't really know much about it. Like what was going through your mind? We're like, oh my gosh, you see all these like CrossFit athletes like in the games. You're like, am I gonna look like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. So it was very intimidating for me because I came from a place. So I was actually really sick going through college. I had an eating disorder for a while,
Hmm.
and I was hospitalized and all that stuff. So I was little, and I was still in that headspace that I wanted to stay little. So it took a little while and a lot of people to get me into a different mindset. And so I'm super appreciative of my gym. I still talk to them all the time. I call them gym mom and dad. Laura and Jeff Rice. They're up in Flower City CrossFit. They actually went to semis this past year, so that
Oh,
was that
nice.
was cool to see them. Um, but they all definitely helped me. They took me through boot camp first. So I still remember my first coach, Adrian. We became pretty good friends. And he kind of kept me accountable and coming back to boot camp, which was like minute stations, burpees, dumbbell snatches, stuff like that. And eventually, I'd say 3 months it took him to convince me to go over to the regular CrossFit classes. But once I did, I was hooked.
Hmm. So you said you had an eating disorder, and like I've had family members that had the same thing, and so, you know, what like obviously like people think they're too fat and they just like don't eat, and like my sister actually was like passing out at school like in the bathroom because she wasn't eating because like you had like someone tell her like she was an Irish step dancer. Someone told her like, hey, you're getting too fat, you need to lose weight. And
Oh,
she wasn't fat at all. Like that's the crazy thing. And so she was like it was a total head fuck for her, and like just ruined her for years. Even like
yeah.
all
Oh,
through high
yeah.
school, college and stuff like that. So what was the thing that happened to you to make you like, start that eating disorder?
So for me, I don't think there was exactly one event. I think it's because the way I was raised, I don't want to say it was super strict, but it was, I didn't drink till I was 21. Like I didn't go out, I didn't sneak out of my house. I got straight A plus. If I got an A minus, I would cry, like just that perfectionist
Hmm.
mindset. And then I got to college and I was on my own and I was in control of my own eating and everything I did. And I just became obsessive over it. Uh, until pretty much I had a seizure one day after I ran, and I was in a 3-day coma. And then after that, it kind of smacked me across the face that, like, you need help type of deal. So
Hmm.
um, I got help. I found CrossFit that helped got a lot. And that's kind of why I switched from engineering to CrossFit, because I sincerely think it changed my life. So now it's my baby. So
Yeah. So did your family like have any idea about like what was going on?
Um, not right away. They started to pick up on it, and then I guess my friends from college started reaching out to my parents. They did like a whole intervention with me at college, and they lived with me on college for a little while. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, that's
very
great.
supportive.
Yeah, that's great. This is supportive. I mean, obviously, like, your parent, like, obviously some parents will go like above and beyond, like, stay with you during the
Yeah.
whole process of like, the eating disorder. It's like we actually brought my sister into a facility, and it was hard. Like they did like a group session, and then they did an intervention, and then like seeing my mom like crying, I lost it. And then like, just seeing how it hurt my was hurting my family, and like it was like stressful. So, but I mean, like
Oh yeah.
I'm glad she's gotten out of it, and I'm glad that you've gotten out of it too. So what was obviously like being in a coma, like waking up, what was the kind of like, needle in the hay, like what was the thing that kind of like pushed you saying, okay, this is not going to happen anymore?
I think it was at that point that I kind of accept. So my mom wanted me to go get help, so I finally did, and that was kind of the first step. It took a lot of setbacks. It took still, I'd say, 2 years after then to be completely like, okay, I'm 100% cured.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that starting with the outpatient, and then I graduated college, that helped me kind of cut back on drinking, because that was a huge issue for me too. So, and then the whole CrossFit space. So it was like just slowly little things and little changes that added up over time. And I just kind of kicked the curve. I got obsessed with CrossFit, and then I started counting my macros, which I was still a little hesitant about, because you can still get into that obsessive mindset, but it's just a slow process. It's something that doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's something that people get frustrated with. And I wish for myself, I could have looked back on how, like you said, it was affecting my family, because I was so mentally turned off to all of that, and
Hmm.
so self-absorbed in what I was feeling. Now looking back on it, I'm like, I broke their hearts. Like, that was so sad. Like, I it's a dark place. It's hard to explain. It's a very dark place to be. So anyone that goes through it and gets to the other side, I'm like, you're my people. Like, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you go, girl.
Hmm. So, obviously, like counting your macros and stuff like that, like, and obviously, it's like you have one addiction of like an eating disorder, and then you kind of move into CrossFit. So, do you think that's like, obviously, like working out and stuff like that? Do you think that's like a good avenue to get into from like, eating disorder to working out?
Yeah, and not even just working out. I think personally CrossFit, because the environment you're in, it changes where your mindset is, and your goal doesn't necessarily become to lose weight or be skinny. And so, yes, some it starts as to lose weight, but I find, especially owning a gym, that a lot of members' perspective changes over time, and your goals become different. And a lot of times it's like, I want to get my first pull up, I want to PR my back squat, and so on and so forth. And that translates to a healthier lifestyle no matter what. So
Hmm.
CrossFit is what I would say, do it.
Yeah, and the good thing is like the community is like pretty helpful to one
Yeah.
another. That's the one thing like I don't see in a global gym. So I train pretty much by myself. I don't go to a gym like a CrossFit gym. I There's a CrossFit area at the gym that I go to,
Mhm.
and it's just like it's so different being in a community, like having like someone push yourself compared to like, oh, I have these dudes deadlifting and they're watching me. Like, that's not really you can't really build a community all by yourself.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So when did you decide to like, hey, like I want to own a gym?
So I it started with hating my career. So I went for chemical engineering. I graduated chemical engineer. I God, I must have had 4 or 5 jobs. I kept job hopping. I went from Rochester back to Massachusetts, back to Rochester again, back home again, and I started coaching so I actually purchased the gym from the previous owner. That's why people always ask, what does 1977 mean to you? I go, I knew it as 77, so I kept the name. It was his birth year. So anyway, I started coaching for him part-time, mostly in the mornings before work. Uh, and I kind of got into coaching both at Flower City in Rochester and back home, depending on where my job was at the time.
Hmm.
And the more I did, the more I was like, screw a desk job. Like, I don't care about money. You know what I mean? And the opportunity presented itself. One day I just asked Chris, and I was like, hey, would you ever sell the gym? And he goes, make me an offer. And here we are.
Obviously you started coaching before. So,
Yeah.
what was your style? We'll get back to like owning the gym after, but
Sure.
I'm kind of like really interested in the coaching part because like everyone coaches different. What
Mhm.
what is your style of coaching to like, new people to very experienced like CrossFit, like, athletes?
Oh boy, there's so many ways I could dive into this. So for our gym personally, now we have an on ramp. So I take them for 4 one-on-ones prior to them coming in for the most part.
Hmm.
Sometimes they jump right into class. I kind of assess where their fitness level is at prior. But say there's a brand new person in class. There's always, so for us, at least 3 different levels of a workout. So I'll automatically start them from the bottom, what I call fitness level. And then usually slash the workout in half, because I don't believe, some people I think have the mindset coaching wise, and when someone comes into a CrossFit class, that okay, make them sweat a lot, work really hard, like be really sore, and that's really not
No,
what you want at
no,
all.
no.
No, you want to show them a lot of attention. You want to really thoroughly explain things more than you think's necessary, because when you come from nothing, even the word snatch, you're like, what? you know? So it's a very different coaching style, very, very, very different coaching style. But you have to be very patient and really focus on that new member, I find personally.
Yeah. When I was a personal trainer, like I always tell people, I'm like, you need to have like some days that you need to kind of like just take it easy a little bit and like not go crazy. But like then you'll see them in group classes like every single day and just like burying themselves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Like that's not helping you whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. So what I'll usually tell them when they start, 'cause if they ask, which I do find they usually ask is, how often do I come? And I usually start them 2, maybe 3 times a week, depending
Hmm.
again on where their fitness level is. But you don't want them to wake up and be unable to go to work or walk the next day. Like that shouldn't be what your goal is for them. You want them to feel the community, feel the environment, all the good energy, and to know that they're being watched after, because I think that is a common misconception of CrossFit, is that you're going to hurt yourself. So you need them to know, like, you are watching, you are not going to get hurt on our watch. So
Yeah. And you
yeah,
only want to get sore during the open.
yeah, that's it. Open only,
Yep.
maybe quarterfinals, but
Yeah, true, true. The most sore that I've ever been was the wall ball rowing, the 1919 workout. And I was like, okay, I'm 6'6", so like this is gonna be like this is in my wheelhouse, so I gotta make it hurt. And the next morning, I looked at the stairs and I was like, oh my God, like I don't and like I was holding my son. He was like 4 at the time, I think. And I looked down, I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna even get down the stairs and hold him. So I literally like sat on the edge of the stairs and we just like both of us like slid down the stairs.
oh, he probably loved that.
Yeah, he loved it. Yeah, but it was like that whole day I was so miserable and like just stretching my quads and like I was just so painful. And that was the only time I like really was like hurting.
Wall ball workouts, for whatever reason, crush me. I don't care what the workout is, but if it has wall balls, I wake up the next day and my quads. I'm not a squatter in general, so maybe that's why. But
Mhm.
yeah, I relate.